Hello and welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro, co-founder of Jake and Gino, multifamily investor, educator, father, and mentor. My guest today is Vlad Arakcheyev. I said it right, brother. He's a New Jersey-based multifamily investor who started a privately held Zantic Ventures to achieve financial independence. A Jake and Gino member for just over 2 years, he now owns hundreds of units with the goal of having 25,000 units by 2027. Welcome to the show, Vlad. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here.
Listen, it's an honor for us to have you here. And listen, let's start off with your journey. I mean, you weren't born in this country. How did you get to America?
Yeah, not at all. I was born in Russia, and in 1993, 30 years ago, I came here and I lived in Brooklyn, New York for 26 years. Uh, I was working as a busboy and then worked in a shoe store and then started working in a graphic design business. That's what I've done for most of my life. And 6 years ago, I moved to New Jersey, North Jersey to be exact. And family, kids, it's just I believe a better place to raise a family here in Jersey. And that's my kind of short spiel about that.
So let me ask you, Vlad, how did you get into multifamily? What attracted you to real estate?
You know what? Actually, it was a complete roller coaster. It's like picture if you're sleeping and somebody just rips off your sheets and dumps a bucket of cold water on top of your head. That's exactly how it started. I was a graphic designer, had this great job 2 miles away from me. I used to come home for lunch,
Wow.
and then COVID hit, and everything changed because I got furloughed. And first 2 months, I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. And then I didn't get called back. Where's the next paycheck coming from? What are we going to do? And my wife, Olga, she suggested to be a real estate agent here in New Jersey because people have to live somewhere, right? COVID or no COVID, people have to buy and sell and rent houses. So I didn't want to do it at all. I was really scared of this whole thing. I didn't know anything about real estate whatsoever. But taking the test online, 70 hours, passed it on the first try, started selling houses here in New Jersey. Attended few conferences. I remember it now. 6 people in the room, 3 chairs in between us with masks, COVID still happening. New York, New Jersey was everything closed down. And I learned about wholesaling, flipping, and shortly after realized it wasn't for me. I didn't want to do this. There has to be something bigger and better and more exciting. Instead of me closing 5 deals, I can close one 5 unit deal. So I went to a multifamily conference in Houston, and there I was just blown away by the caliber of people I met. Everybody's so welcoming. Everyone just said, "Hey, listen, if you have any questions, please reach out at any time." And it's just a completely different world. And as soon as I got home, I said, what do we need? We need mentorship, education, connections. And that's when I joined Jake and Gino, and everything took off after that.
Before we get into the Jake and Gino, real quick, I need to ask you this question honestly. If COVID had not happened, would you still be working as a graphic designer?
Oh boy, I would say most likely yes. You know what? One of the biggest thing I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and for everybody who says, "Oh my gosh, this book changed my life," I read it. I understood the book. It did not change my life. You know why? Because I got the idea, but
Yes.
I was too scared to implement the idea. I was so ingrained that from the very beginning that I need to have a W-2, that's what I have to do. My parents are like, "Oh, you have a great job. It's just a mile away from your house. Why would you quit? You have a bachelor's degree in graphic design, advertising management. Don't No need to leave. It's perfectly secure. It's great. Why?" And I don't honestly know. I mean, I thinking back, would I have done it? Maybe, but I just needed that push. Some people need a big push, a kick in their butts to really get moving. COVID was a kick in the butt for me.
Vlad, this may be a hard question to answer. but I need to ask it because I heard a little bit about your background. You're a young 13-year-old boy who comes to this country as a refugee who probably can't speak the language. The opportunities aren't there. Now, as an adult, you're afraid to leave your W 2 job. Isn't that insane? Like, what happened over the next 20 years that made you fearful? You went from one of the biggest challenges. I always challenge my mom with this. She's a 14-year-old immigrant from Italy who had to live in an apartment with 5 of her family members. They all worked multiple jobs. And then when I needed to get into real estate, she's like, oh, that's really risky. And that's really scary. I'm like, Mom, you did one of the most challenging things that a human can do. Leave their homeland, come to somewhere that's you don't even understand the language. Everything's foreign to you. How did you? Where did that fear come from? When you're looking back at it?
I don't know. I always wanted to be comfortable. I think I was born in June, so my sign is Cancer, and Cancers like safety. They like comfort. They like to avoid conflicts. So that's why I picked the job of being a graphic designer, because you sit in front of a computer. You don't have to really talk to anyone. It's just you and the machine. So I like to be in my quote unquote cocoon, and I didn't want to take any chances. That's the big thing. But yeah, you're right. At 13, I remember it now as it was yesterday. I was flying in a plane. It was Delta Airlines, and the stewardess comes over. I was 13. And she goes, "What would you like, fish or chicken?" And I freaked out, and I think I started crying because I didn't know what she was telling me. I was just I didn't know the language at all. So yeah, I think it's the combination of stuff. I don't know. Plus, my family is just so old school Russians that they're like, this is what you have to do. They don't know what being a business person means. That this is not for you whatsoever. So I didn't have any support when it comes to that at
So
all.
before I get into my next question, I need to make fun of you just a little bit because Russian comfort. I mean, it gets pretty cold there, right?
Yeah.
It gets pretty confrontational there, doesn't it? The language is difficult. So I mean, there's not really many creature comforts in Russia. So for you to come here and say I want to be comfortable, that's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, when it comes to comfort in Russian, and it's not, no, they just in my case, Russian parents are basically telling you what you did wrong instead of how well you are doing. It's like, this is what you're doing wrong, and this is what you have to fix. All your accomplishments are nothing. I'll just give you another example. Literally a year ago, after we closed, I don't know, like 7 deals and 3 JVs, and my mom invested in one of the deals. My mom turns to me and she goes, "So when are you looking for a job?" Mom, are you serious? I mean, you literally own 40 units in Kansas City, and you because of me, and you asking me when am I going to get a job? So it's just a mentality. I don't think you can change that.
It's very interesting because I think Russian moms and Italian moms are very similar. Because when I told my mother I was leaving the restaurant, oh, you can't do that. You've got 6 mouths to feed. This thing is risky. You already lost money once. So Gino kept his mouth quiet. And I accumulated 200 units with Jake before I sat down Ivana in the parking lot of Gino's Trattoria. And I said, Mom, I think I'm leaving the restaurant in the next 6 months. And she goes, huh? What do you mean? I'm like, I got you. How did you do that? And now my mother invests in our deals as well. They
Yeah.
tell you it's risky until you do it. And then they come back and they want to invest with you. Isn't that the irony?
It's absolutely, it is. It's just the craziest thing because it's very difficult to imagine. Entrepreneurship is not done in Russia. It's not. Everything
Mhm.
is owned by the government. Back then, I really don't remember it that much. I mean, it's been 30 years. But as far as they told me, I mean, they worked at a newspaper, nothing much. And I think that's why I wanted to be a graphic designer because they
Mm.
worked on the newspaper. What am I going to do? Okay, graphic designer, that's pretty close. So
Wow. So there's a lot of revelations here for the listeners, but I think for you as well. Now you're putting back what you went into because your parents did it there. Last question before we move on to deals, but this is important for me. When you're looking at it, what would you tell the listeners if you want to venture off to yourself, did you get a lot of flack, obviously, from your family members? What did they say to you, and how did you hold the course? Because a lot of us would say, okay, and myself included, I didn't want to get stuck there anymore. I didn't want to go to the restaurant and have it snow every week and not make money. And I just shut people out, especially people who were trying to help me. And my mom was trying to protect me. But what pushed you to continue on and say, I'm not going to listen to them?
My wife, she's my biggest supporter, and she her personality on a disc rating, she's a red. She's she wants to be moving forward. She wants to progress. She doesn't want to coast. So she's like, we have to do this. We no, she didn't actually say that. She said, we are doing this. She literally said, "We going." She's the one that bought the tickets to Houston. She's literally, "We flying to Houston." Because if she's like, "Can we buy?" I would probably say no. But she just purchased it because my question is like, "Oh my gosh, it's like few $1,000s. It's a lot of money, and what are we doing? It's a lot of risk." So she's my biggest supporter, and without her, we wouldn't be able to do any of this what we're doing now. Yes.
Teamwork is the dream work. And I really got to ask you this question before we get into the framework and your deals. You're comfortable in front of a computer screen, and that's what you love to do. And now I see you at all the multifamily events, MM5, MM6. You're going up to Chris Voss, shaking his hand. You're doing podcasts. You're going down to Wall Street, raising capital. What happened?
Yeah, you know what? A complete mind shift. It took some time. It took about 8 to 10 months. A lot of work on myself, on my personality, and the biggest thing right now is the mind change. It's education is one thing. Anybody can educate themselves, but really getting yourself out there and being uncomfortable will really move the needle significantly. I mean, just coming up to a person, I go at the gas station because I'm a residential agent here in New Jersey also, and I see somebody driving up in a nice car. I literally can come up to them in the gas station and say, "Hey, listen, my name is Vlad. I see that's a great car. Can I just ask you, what do you do for a living?" And just start up a conversation this way. My wife now, she's like, "Oh my God, I'm running away. Stop embarrassing me." But I'm curious because there's an opportunity everywhere. That's why everybody says, talk to people. And a lot of people are missing this very simple point where you just have to talk to people. That's it. You're in the people business.
Dude, that is such great advice because it's something very simple. And if you see somebody, what are you excited about? That's the whole thing. In our culture, what do you do for a living? If you're in Europe, is where do you live? That there's a lot of differences between the European culture and our culture. But that is an excellent question to ask. I got right down here. I wrote this question down because this is maybe challenging for you, but limiting beliefs. You seem like you had a lot of limiting beliefs like the rest of us. We still have them. Can you share one or two limiting beliefs? And I think yours will probably resonate with somebody out there. And I think you've told us the secret to it, but let's dive into a little deeper. What does that mean, personal development and working on yourself?
You know what? For me, it was a huge challenge. One of the big things is that I was always like, let me try. Oh, let's see if it works. And if you try, you're not going to succeed. You see everywhere, even in Star Wars, Yoda says, "Do, don't try." Same thing. Now everything is clicking into place. They're saying it everywhere. You just have to do. That's why, as soon as I started doing real estate, residential stuff, I noticed that my W-2 was taking away too much of my time, and I resigned. I literally called my wife in the middle of the lunch break and I said, "Babe, can you send me a resignation letter?" She's like, "What do you mean? What's happening?" I'm like, I have to leave. I gotta get out. And this was the biggest change in my life where I just took that leap, burned all the bridges. No more going back. It's this or nothing. So I took that W-2 completely off my plate and just dove right into it. Did flips, did some buy and holds, single family here in Jersey, sold it all, and diving full time into real estate. And of course, like I said, I'm doing residential sales here in Jersey as well.
And Vlad, at the same time, you still have in the back of your mind, your mother saying to you, Vlad, you can't leave the cushy job. It's got to be very challenging. The little devil on one side and you've got the angel on the other, and they're tugging away. And that's the important thing. If you start working on yourself personally, if
Yeah.
you can get crystal clear clarity, if you can be honest with yourself, if you can think forward and you can surround yourself with the right people, because I think you really need that. You need, I don't want to call it a support group, but it's your peer group. If your
It is.
peer group is lazy, they don't want to do anything, they're going to say, hey, Vlad, come on, just stay at the job. It's great. But if your support group or your peer group is like, Vlad, that's a great idea. Go for it, brother. And your support group is your wife. And your support group is the Jake and Gino community. If you do that, everything changes. I think you really need to set that foundation and to have that foundation with if you have a spouse or a community. I think that's really important. What did you have lacking, or what did you really need from the community when you joined?
One of the big things is education, of course. That's number one, and connections. Because, like I said, I live in Jersey. I didn't want to buy any multifamily in Jersey. Our target market was Texas, and at that time, Florida. Now it's North Carolina and South Carolina. But we also buy in Kansas City as well. These are the just two markets, three markets that we focus on. But the biggest thing is partners, because how can we buy deals there if we here?
Mhm.
So partnerships is one thing, of course, education. And I needed some sort of a support. I needed to be in a community that understands me. And that's what Jake and Gino provided for me.
It's interesting that you say that because the KC deal is really good. The markets that you picked, and I want to shatter the limiting belief of anybody who says I need to live in my market, because that's not the case with you. Correct? You went outside your market. How did you decide to do that? And can you give me some pointers on how you picking markets outside of your backyard?
Yeah, number one, I have to go and just say I invest in red states. I do not invest in blue states. It's just, in my opinion, it just works better. Originally, we picked one of the hottest markets, which is Florida. Now, Florida, it's just cash flow is not there. I believe it's overpriced. Insurance is astronomical. We do have a property there. We're looking to exit it shortly. That's why we moved up to the Carolinas. Now, Texas, we always wanted to be in Texas. I have this, passion for Texas from the very beginning, since I saw Walker Texas Ranger when I was 14 years old. I don't know. It's just, I just love Texas. But the Kansas City happened by accident. And I'll tell you the story. You're going to laugh. So I went direct to seller, right? So I'm going like this. How can I call direct to seller and find properties, multifamily properties? So Olga had this brilliant idea. She goes, why don't you just pick a random city and call them? Even if you crash and burn and just make a fool out of yourself, who cares? It's not your market, right? And then when you get the reps in, you call Texas, right? You call Houston or Dallas, and then you're going to be ready for it. I'm like, okay, so what's a good market I can pick? Okay, I'll call Kansas City. And I started calling Kansas City, and literally in a week I found the deal. So
Wow.
this Kansas City just happened by accident, and it's a very happy, lucky accident. And it's, in my opinion, one of the greatest investment and one of the best places to invest.
So let's remove the word lucky out of that because it's happy and it's investment. There
Yeah.
is a bit of luck involved, but Vlad had to get on a plane to go to Houston to invest thousands of dollars. He had to come back. He had to resign from being a graphic designer and listen to his family and everyone think he's crazy. Then he had to have his wife say to him, pick up the phone and call this city. That may be lucky that you picked this city, but I think if you'd have chosen another city, you probably would have had the same results. And a week seems like a really short time, but it can also be a very long, painful time when you have sellers on the phone, slamming the phone on you, saying, "Who are you?" Well, your name is Vlad Arakcheyev. What? Who am I talking to? So there's always a bit of what we want to call luck, although I think luck is preceded by a lot of hard work and by putting in the reps and being able to speak the lingo and being able to understand what a deal looks like. That's the power. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, any other stumbles that you had on that journey, or now will you take that word lucky away and give yourself and your wife some more credit?
I do actually. That happened after 8 months of education,
Uh-huh.
8 months of absolutely zero income, zero luck. I would say zero success because we didn't buy anything. So it was 8 months of constantly talking on the phone, constantly communicating, underwriting, looking at deals, education. It was like drinking out of a fire hose. I mean, it was just intimidating. The first time I opened up an underwriting model, I literally slumped back in my chair and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like 15 tabs on the bottom. What is this? I literally freaked out. So it was 8 months it took. And then we got into this. So it's not instant. It's
But what
dedication.
but what
It's
is instant though, Vlad? Like what is instant? I mean, you did have to go to college for 4 years to get your bachelor's to go into graphic design. I mean, you had to go and get your real estate license. That took time and all. So, I mean, for anybody to think that they're going to have a life-changing effect in multifamily or in any real estate adventure, I just had a gentleman named the Finance Cowboy on, and same thing with him. It took him 5 years to pay off his debt. Then it took him another year or two to buy his first house, and then after that he started progressing. But there's a lot of foundational work that needs to happen. And more importantly, what Vlad said needs to happen work with inside of you. You need to get your mind prepared. You need to be prepared. You need to be surrounded by the right people, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your community. And then you need to have that support system because when things go rough and you're working on this for 8 months and your spouse is saying to you, not Vlad, but a typical spouse, we've invested all this money. Why aren't there any results? What's going on? They don't understand the hard work that it takes to put in. But once you start seeing results, all of a sudden things start changing. Now, this deal in Kansas City, why was it so interesting? What did you like about it?
one of the craziest thing. Like I said, I called this owner, and he's an older gentleman. He didn't raise the rents in like 7 years or something like that, and he didn't believe me in the beginning. And he goes, your name is Vlad and you're calling from a 917 number, it's from Brooklyn, New York, you fake. And he hung up on me. He literally did. And I tried to call him back, he blocked my number. So what I've done is, I got a Google phone, Google number, and I called him back. And I'm like, hey, listen, whatever you do, please don't block me anymore. What do I need to show you that I'm a real buyer, that we can do this deal? And he goes, why don't you meet me tomorrow in this coffee place in Kansas City? And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Luckily, my accountability coach was in Kansas City. So I pick up a phone, I call him, I'm like, listen, Joe, you have to go and meet this guy because there's a great opportunity here. And he said, done. They met the next day. Joe calls me back and he said, we're buying it. It's an unbelievable deal and we in it. So let's go. It was a JV opportunity and we jumped in.
Wow. So I have to backtrack for a second. If your name is Vlad and if you're calling from Brooklyn, you may have an excuse or two. But if you're not Russian and you don't have a Brooklyn phone number, there's no excuses. You don't have to pass the real test. And I like the fact that you're consistent and that you're what's the word? You're just going to keep putting in the reps and you're not going to quit. Get another phone number, get another call. And I'm sure if Joe Sullivan couldn't get out there, I'm sure you probably would have jumped in your car, driven out there, or flown out there. You would have made that happen as well, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, flying. I by then I didn't have a W-2. I had the time, so I would have flown over there. Absolutely.
Wow. And then what? So what's the strategy with the deal? If you want to talk about the buy right, the finance right, the manage right of this deal, want to give us an overview of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were buying it at. We purchased it at 55,000 per unit.
Oh,
And yeah, it's unbelievable. And if you look at, and it came out to, I'm just looking at the numbers here, over six cap. At the time, everything was trending around like four and a half, five maybe.
wow.
And yeah, and the craziest thing is that, like I said, he didn't raise any of the prices, and the rents were like $600, and market rent is 800. So that's what we projected. So after we took over, we realized two things. Number one, there was 6 acres of land that came with the property, which is vacant, and it can be rezoned to anything, including multifamily or storage, you name it. And right now we're trying to figure out what to do with it. One of the suggestions is putting up like a billboard or something like that. That's going to bring in extra income, or even a cell phone tower. another suggestion. But coming back to the apartments, so we started raising the rents. It was 100% occupied. We started raising the rents. Nobody moved out, not a single person. For 8 months, 9 months actually, we hiked up the rents. Not a single person moved out. Just
Wow.
recently, two people moved out, and the mix, the unit mix is one ones and two 1.5, 20/20 of each. So we hiked up the rents, and we go, listen, on two we can get market rent. Let's try higher. We went higher, and guess what? We got it rented within a week because Kansas City is just blowing up. This market is hot, and there's no availability anywhere. So we're very happy with this property.
And you've talked to a little bit about getting deals. I think what you've done, I think you got to get out of your comfort zone, go up to people, start talking to people, and start the conversation is number two. Number one. Number two is direct to seller. I think your direct to seller model works really well if you're the type of person who can get lists and who minds making those phone calls. Have you talked to brokers? Have you connected with brokers in the market as well?
That's right. Yeah, that's what we're focusing on now. We shifted our model a little bit. We still go direct to seller, but a lot of it is broker relationships, and
Mhm.
also uh, just being in the space. If people know you're buying, just word of mouth is everything. So yes, you should go direct to seller, but in my opinion, you will get more deals by having tight broker relationships. Because
Mhm.
brokers honestly hold all the keys.
Vlad, if I'm listening to this and I'm a little fearful to start, or I don't know where to start, what would you tell a beginning investor? What are the first couple of things they should do?
A few things that they should do is, number one, evaluate if they want to be active or they want to be passive. So what's the end goal? And kind of work backwards from that. If you want to be active, then yes, spend money on education. It does cost money. It does cost a lot of, grinding and effort. And like, just to give you an example, in the very beginning, I was on 5 Zoom calls per day. That's how much networking I've done, and just
Wow.
speaking with everyone per day, nonstop, from like 8 a.m. Until like 10 p.m. So nonstop talking to people, just putting my name out there as much as possible. So if you want to be a GP, that's what you should do. Really put yourself out there as much as possible. If you want to be a passive investor, that's okay. You should still learn how to underwrite, how to look at deals, how to vet operators, what questions to ask. Not that much education is needed. I mean, there's a bunch of books you can do, online resources as well. So just decide what your path is and kind of go from there. And of course, ask us. We're here to help.
hmm I love that. And I would say if you're going to be a limited partner and that's what you want to do full time, I would still challenge people to join a group only because the group is going to have people who are operators. And the group's going to say, oh, wow, Jake and Gino, we've got these operators here. Myself as a limited partner, I can learn the business and I should learn how to buy right, finance right, and manage right. It's really, really important. You should still learn how to, you know, do the business as if you are going to be an active investor, but do it passively. And then you never know. What might happen is, as a passive investor, you may say, hey, after 2 or 3 years, I really like this gig. I could see myself doing this full time. How do I jump in? So, if you can really lay the foundation, once again, learn the business as if you're going to do it yourself. But then, if you're going to quote unquote hand your money off to somebody else and they're your money, you're the fiduciary for your money, it's your responsibility to be able to understand the business. And I have a quick story where when I started out early on before I met Jake, I met a gentleman named Maserati Mike. He had a nice gold Maserati, drove into the parking lot, and I had a money. Maserati Mike had a deal. I gave Maserati Mike my $172,000. 18 months later, that deal went up in flames. Now, I can blame Maserati Mike all I want. Was he incompetent? Was he a buffoon? Absolutely. But if you're going to live with 100% responsibility, if you're going to work from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. like Vlad does, if you're going to get on a plane the next day, if you're going to call people all the time and take that kind of responsibility, then when that story happened to me, I wasn't in that mode, but I should have been responsible enough to understand how to underwrite the deal, go fly the property, take a look at his credentials. What does his team look like? What does his financing look like? So I learned the lesson the really hard way of saying, it's too expensive to buy some education. I think I can just do it myself and give my money to somebody and they can do it. Well, a man with money meets a man with experience. That man with experience gets the money, and the man with the money ultimately gets the experience. I don't want that to happen to anybody listening to this. And I think you need to lay the foundation. I think that's really, really important. Vlad, anything else before we sign off? I obviously want the listeners to get, if you want to put your phone number out there. And Vlad, yes, he is a real person. He is from Brooklyn, but he's a real person. Phone number, website, email, throw it out there for me, brother.
Yeah, it's zonticventures.com, and I'm on YouTube. I started my YouTube channel. I like motorcycles, so I combine real estate and motorcycles. I called it uh, because everybody has some sort of a niche. So my niche is combining my both hobbies there. So it's wheels and real estate deals. It's kind of catchy. And recently, believe it or not, I never thought it's going to happen. Somebody approached me to be in a book, and I was just completely blown away. And for a split second, even now, I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And that immediately went away. And my reply was, let's do it. What do you want me to do? So the book is out, believe it or not. It's unbelievable. So it's 15 operators put together their personal stories and how they overcame challenges, and now it's selling on Amazon and everything. So I'm just amazed that in short period of time, with hard work, support, this can be achieved. So if you're listening to this and you really want to try this, go for it. Absolutely. And you always have the support system and help and everything. So yeah, look me up on Facebook, LinkedIn, of course, Instagram, TikTok. I post some motorcycle videos and stuff like that.
That
So
is awesome. So I got to recap the story because it's just an amazing story. I mean, you're a 13-year-old boy sitting on a Delta flight coming from Russia, coming to the United States, not knowing the language, being approached by a flight attendant. At that time, they were called stewardesses. Now,
yeah,
now they're called flight attendants, right? So it's
yeah,
amazing how much the world has changed. But you're there. You don't really speak the language at all. You're fearful, and you're living in this culture that tells you to do what you're supposed to do. You gravitate to become a graphic designer because subconsciously that's what your family did. And you enjoyed the job. The job is great. You're comfortable in the US. It's not minus 20 below. You can go out to the store. The shelves are full of food. It's a great lifestyle. You're living the middle class dream until the big event happens,
yeah.
and then you get furloughed, and then you start getting frustrated. You're reading the purple Bible, but it doesn't really make sense to me. I don't understand this until I live it, and until the risk comes. All of these limiting beliefs that I had, oh, your job is secure, it's safe, real estate, being an entrepreneur, that's risky. Once you started working on yourself, once you started working and challenging your limiting beliefs, once you locked in and you understood what your why was, once you burned the bridges, once you joined the community like Jake and Gino, once you got on that plane to fly down to Houston, take that next step. And with your partner on your side, and she's flying down there with you, and she's pushing you into that oncoming traffic and saying, we need to do this, while everyone else behind you is saying, this is too risky, Vlad. And then you get that deal, and everyone invests with you, and they're still doubting you. When are you going back to your job? I ain't going back ever. It's 25,000 units or bust, baby. That's where I'm going. So, brother, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor having you on this show. And listen, success, continued success. And once again, what's the name of that book? We got to put it in the show notes.
Oh yeah, of course. It's called. Hold on, I actually have it right here. It's called Real Estate Investing Unlocked. So it's really cool. It's just, I'm amazed. I'm really truly blessed, and everybody been so welcoming. And just don't forget, it's a team sport.
I love
So
that.
find your team and find support group, and you will be successful.
Last words for me before we sign off. To Vlad, it's amazing. To me, it's not amazing because of all the hard work and the persistence that he's put in. He didn't wake up one day and go, I want to become an entrepreneur. He put in the work, 8 months, all that effort, and he had a support system and he had an amazing spouse to push him through. And once you have that clarity and you have that focus, great things can happen. Once again, Vlad, thanks a lot for being on the show, and we will see you all on the next Movers and Shakers.